Hello, and welcome to our virtual community meeting. To choose whether you'd like to listen in English or Spanish, please click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and select your preferred language option. Hola y bienvenidos a nuestra reunión virtual. Para elegir si desea escuchar en inglés o en español, haga clic en el botón Interpretación en la parte inferior de la pantalla y seleccione el idioma que prefiera. If you'd like to follow along with a Spanish translated slide deck, please visit capmetroengage.org. Click Participate at the top, select the stations meeting, and scroll down to the download section. You can access the Spanish language PDF of the presentation there. We're also placing the link directly to the PDF into the chat box for this meeting. Si desea mirar la presentación en español, puede hacer clic en capmetroengage.org, participar y encontrar el botón de downloads para ver la presentación en español. Pardon me, I've lost my notes here. Excuse me, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Apologies. Here we go. Si desea seguir junto con una presentación traducida en español, visite capmetroengage.org y haga clic en participar. En la parte superior, seleccione la reunión de estaciones y hacia abajo encontrará la sección de descargas. Puede acceder a un PDF en español de la presentación ahí. También colocamos el cuadro de chat en el enlace directamente al PDF para esta reunión. We also have live closed captioning available in English. You can turn on this feature by clicking the CC button in the Zoom meeting toolbar, which is located at the bottom of your screen. While we're waiting to get started, you'll be prompted to answer our polling question. For those in Zoom, we'd like to know more about you and how you found out about this meeting. For those watching on Facebook Live, we'd also like to know a little bit more about you to make sure we're reaching a truly representative sample of our community. If you're watching on social media, go to surveymonkey.com/r/PC April 2021 or APR 2021 to participate. We're putting the link in the Facebook chat now. Thank you for participating in the poll if you're on Zoom, and the survey if you're watching this on social media. We'll use the data to improve our outreach efforts. Let's take a look at our poll results. All right. It looks like most people were actually already on our mailing list and received the notification via email. That's great. We've got a few that saw it in the newspaper and some that saw it on social media and some that even saw it on the news. So that's great to hear. So thank you again for joining us for this virtual presentation and our breakout groups. We have a lot to share and discuss today, so let's get started. I'm Jackie Nierenberg, and I'm joined today by Lonnie Stern, who is managing our events this week. And in addition, we have several speakers today who will be introduced when it's their turn to speak. I really want to underscore how much we miss being able to be out there in the community, talking with you in person. We know attending virtual meetings isn't ideal for a lot of reasons, so we hope to get back out in the community very soon. Until then, we're doing our best to make this meeting accessible and easy to participate in. With that, let's get going. The first portion of the meeting will be presentation style, with an opportunity for us to share information with you. Then we'll move to breakout sessions designed to hear from you. If you're watching this meeting on social media and like to participate in a breakout session after the initial presentation, please stay tuned and we'll share the link by the end of the broadcast. For now, all participants are muted, and we ask that you submit any questions or comments via the Q&A feature in the bottom center of your screen. If you don't see it immediately, try hovering in the bottom middle of your screen, and it should appear. Your questions and comments will be received by our moderator and will be addressed at the end of the presentation or added to the discussion agenda. If you're watching on social media, please submit any questions or comments in the Facebook chat feature. Finally, I want to mention that all of these materials are available online through self-guided version of this meeting. You can access those materials and provide your feedback on what we'll be discussing in the breakout groups by going to capmetroengage.org and clicking participate at the top. We'll put the link directly in the chat. Here's our agenda for today. We'll start with an update of the overall Project Connect program. The rest of our presentation content is focused on typical light rail station design, amenities, and access, as well as the analysis conducted to identify potential orange and blue line stations. We have 3 sessions planned this week, and we'll share the same content at the beginning of the broadcast. After that, we'll break, and if you'd like to participate in a breakout session, you'll click a link to move into the breakout waiting room. From there, you'll have the opportunity to select a virtual breakout room that's right for you. The breakout session topics are the same for each meeting. Let's start with some updates on the Project Connect program overall.
Hi, my name is Giannis Banks, and I am a Community Engagement Coordinator for Capital Metro. Let's begin by sharing what we heard during our last round of community engagement. This slide provides a more in-depth view of the orange and blue line virtual meeting data, including the survey that was offered as part of the meetings. The orange line survey received 95 responses represented in the word cloud at the bottom of the screen. This visual demonstration shows the most common terms from the comments received. As you can see, land use, project area, material use, transit, and environment were terms frequently used in the public feedback. We are pleased to announce that there were 1,326 Orange Line meeting participants. This included virtual open house, unique visits, along with visits on Zoom and Facebook Live. During the live virtual meetings, 752 people participated. We received 180 comments and questions from the community. The public had the opportunity to view the recorded presentation and meetings materials on our website from January 25th through March 12th. During that time, we had 574 unique visitors and 95 survey responses. The Blue Line survey received 97 responses, and again above, you will see a word cloud representing the words that were used more frequently within those public comments. We see that environment, impact, park, and material were the terms that were comments and questions from the community. Again, the public had the opportunity to view the recorded presentation and meeting materials on our website from January 25th through March 12th. We had 665 unique visitors during this time. The orange and blue line survey responses included 28 unique zip codes. If you want to see more in-depth summary of the data, visit projectconnect.com/get-involved and click on Learn More under Community Engagement. We received a great deal of input from the survey for Pleasant Valley and Expo Metro Rapid lines. To the right, you would notice the word cloud shows the terms frequently used within responses and comments we received. Common words found within these responses include bus stop, station, line use, park, and more transit. 353 people participated in the live virtual Metro Rapid meetings. We received 73 comments and questions from the meeting participants. The self-guided public meeting was open from February 2nd through March 19th. And during that time, there were 133 responses about the station amenities survey and 566 unique visitors. Overall, there were 919 participants, including the virtual open house unique visits, along with visits on Zoom and Facebook Live. The Metro Rapid survey responses included 29 unique zip codes. We appreciate your feedback, and it will be used to guide planning for all 3 projects. Again, if you'd like to see more details, head to projectconnect.com get-involved. Many of the projects in the Project Connect program will undergo the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, process. This process is specifically designed to facilitate coordination, review, and feedback between parties at all levels from community members to the federal government. We will start by reviewing the core team. The Federal Transit Administration is the federal lead agency in the NEPA process. Capital Metro is the local sponsor agency. The City of Austin is a participating agency and a critical project partner. The newly established independent organization called the Austin Transit Partnership is designed to guide the overall Project Connect investment and implementation after the NEPA process is complete.
The Community Advisory Committee was created by the City of Austin, Cap Metro, and the Austin Transit Partnership. The committee will advise these three partners on topics related to equity and Project Connect, including efforts to curb displacement along the Project Connect system. It is comprised of 8 community members appointed by a nominating committee, 1 ex officio member, and 5 representatives appointed from within existing advisory groups, including City of Austin Urban Transportation Commission, Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities, Community Development Commission, and Cap Metro's Customer Satisfaction Advisory Committee and Access Advisory Committee. The CAC will assist the City of Austin in allocating $300 million of anti-displacement funds. The anti-displacement funds must be spent in accordance with the contract with voters and the Project Connect sequencing plan. There will be an annual budgeting process with typical reimbursement procedures and reporting and audit provisions as in any grant agreement between public entities. The team will work collaboratively to take advantage of any opportunity for federal matches. A key technical issue is to work together to ensure that when identifying land, there aren't major conflicts with engineering and construction. The sequencing plan also includes anti-displacement budget allotments for 13 years. The first $100 million will be spent within the first 3 years of the Project Connect program, and the next $100 million will be spent during years 4 through 8, with the remaining $100 million allocated to the final years of the program.
Now let's turn to some updates for Metro Rapid. Beginning in 2019 through 2020, Cap Metro conducted an alternative analysis for Metro Rapid. The process used a phased approach and tiered screening process through which alternatives were defined, evaluated, and refined or eliminated in each step. The information collected was provided to decision makers and the community and used to evaluate costs and benefits. A locally preferred alternative was developed that would most effectively maximize the transit investment in Metro Rapid. 4 lines are moving forward at this time. These are Pleasant Valley, Expo Center, Burnett to Menchaca, and Oak Hill, and the Gold Line. The Gold Line will begin as a Metro Rapid service and could be converted eventually to a light rail as part of the system plan. 30% design is complete for the Pleasant Valley and Expo lines, and the environmental documentation has been submitted to the FTA for environmental clearance. After environmental clearance is received, these projects will continue moving forward to 100% design. Based on feedback received as part of the January meetings, Cap Metro is evaluating changes to station design, including creating stations that fit within the size and character of the neighborhood where they are located. These stations are sometimes called neighborhood scale stations. This summer, 30% design will be completed for the Gold and Burnett to Menchaca and Oak Hill lines. We will also be doing additional outreach at that time. Next, let's discuss what's happening with Metro Rail. As part of the program, we will see a new Metro Rail line, the Green Line, as well as improvements planned for the existing Red Line. The Green Line will run east, connecting locations in East Austin to downtown. Plans for the Red Line include the addition of 2 new stations at McCalla and Broadmoor, with McCalla the designated station for the new Austin FC soccer stadium. The project also includes double tracking, or building a second additional line of track from the Leander to Lakeline station. Construction contracts are anticipated to be available later this year. All lines will connect to additional transit service such as neighborhood circulators, Metro Bike, Metro Access services, and more. Additional pickup services are also included in the Project Connect program. Cap Metro's Pickup is an on-demand neighborhood circulator that provides pickup and drop-off in select neighborhoods. Pickup lets you connect to and from your final destination without driving. On March 23rd, we launch our most recent pickup service, Pickup Pflugerville. This is the 8th neighborhood circulator launched by Cap Metro. The first ride is free, so come on and try it out. As part of Project Connect, a total of 15 new circulators will be added, 4 of them this year. The next pickup zones to be on the lookout for are North Dessau, Manchaca, and Southwest Austin, all anticipated to begin serving you this summer. Visit capmetro.org to learn more about this expanding service.
We have so much to cover today. Lots of things going on with Project Connect. So now we're going to hand it off to Jacob, who's going to talk a little bit about the Project Connect program. Take it away, Jacob.
Thank you, Jackie. Capital Metro began development of the Project Connect Vision Plan in 2016. In December 2018, the Capital Metro Board of Directors approved the Project Connect Vision Plan, later called the System Plan, which identified corridors for potential investment in high-capacity transit, or HCT. The orange line and the blue line were identified as dedicated pathway, high-capacity transit corridors in this plan. In 2019, the Austin City Council approved the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, or ASMP, which established a policy goal to quadruple the share of commuters who use transit to achieve a 50-50 mode split by 2039. The Project Connect System Plan is included as an integral part of the ASMP, and both initiatives provide a way forward for addressing the current and future mobility challenges the region faces. Mobility challenges are partially driven by historic and future population growth, with the Austin population projected to double by 2040. The Orange Line project is defined as light rail transit, or LRT, operating in a dedicated transit way from Tech Ridge Park and Ride on the northern end of the corridor to just north of Slaughter Lane on the southern end of the corridor. 21 stations are proposed along the route. The placement of these facilities will be coordinated with the community. Service would operate every 10 to 15 minutes. Given recent trends in federal grant funding, the funding approved by City of Austin voters as part of Proposition A would provide the local match to build an initial investment in the Orange Line from Stasny Lane to North Lamar Transit Center. However, the project team is clearing the entire corridor from Slaughter Lane to Tech Ridge Park and Ride through the federal NEPA process in the event that additional federal or other funding becomes available to expedite construction of the full corridor. The Blue Line project is defined as a light rail transit service that would operate in an 8.2-mile dedicated transit way from Republic Square in downtown Austin to Austin Bergstrom International Airport. It would operate along portions of the existing Route 20. Up to 11 stations are proposed along the route. Service would operate every 10 to 15 minutes. The Orange Line and Blue Line are on similar project implementation tracks as shown on this graphic. This graphic is designed to represent the entire project lifecycle, with a focus on the phase we are now in, indicated by the shaded box. Prior to this phase, as shown, the Orange and Blue Line locally preferred alternatives were unanimously adopted by the Capital Metro Board of Directors and endorsed by Austin City Council on June 10, 2020. In November 2020, City of Austin voters approved an 8.75-cent tax rate increase to help fund the next phase of implementation for the system plan, which includes both the Orange and Blue Lines and allowed us to enter the phase we are in now, known as NEPA, or the environmental phase. Earlier this year, we shared some information with the community on the NEPA scoping process for both projects and explained what to expect over the next few years. We are now moving into the next phase of the environmental or NEPA process, which is the development of the draft environmental impact statement. After the NEPA phase is complete, the project can move into final design and then construction and eventually testing and operation. An important aspect of this graphic to note is that public engagement will be conducted throughout this phase and future phases of the project. For more information about the project and the NEPA process, you can access the materials developed for our scoping phase outreach at projectconnect.com. Visit the Get Involved page and then scroll to the bottom to look at previous virtual meetings. The blue line and orange line also share similar corridor design milestones. At the same time as the environmental process that you saw on the previous slide is underway, the engineering teams are working on the preliminary design plans for the projects. The environmental analysis and the preliminary engineering will influence each other as we work toward a final environmental impact statement and final 30% design plans. We plan to talk with you more about the engineering process for developing design options and selecting a preferred option in particularly constrained areas later this year as we work toward completion of the 15% design plans. We will also revisit this diagram in future presentations to update you on our progress and talk about what's happening next. Then, after the NEPA and preliminary engineering phase, the project moves into final design. As you can see, we are still in the process of developing 15% design plans. During this time, we are completing the activities you see in the second column. In the third column, you can see the types of information we'll be seeking from our community as we complete these 15% design plans. The design work we're doing now is helping us explore and determine options for solving some complex engineering challenges that have been identified in both corridors. We have limited space for transportation in the existing right-of-way, which leads us to consider trade-offs for managing and prioritizing the use of the space that is already designated and determining where we need to acquire more space at street level. If more space can't be acquired or other geographical and operational challenges make a street level transitway unreasonable or unfeasible, we consider other options like building a transitway above or below street level. As you can imagine, building tunnels and bridges come with their own complex engineering challenges and costs too. Tunnels may increase conflicts with underground utilities and make it more challenging to determine where a tunnel begins and ends, referred to as portals. Elevated transitways bring visual impacts associated with overhead structures and stations, as well as increased cost and accessibility considerations. For today, the important thing to keep in mind is that as the transitway goes, either at, above, or below street level, a station may follow. Because those two decisions, the transitway design and the station design, are so linked, we aren't yet able to say with certainty the type of station we're moving forward with at each location. Later in this presentation, we will give you some idea of what we're no longer considering in some areas so that we can facilitate a deeper dialogue about the stations themselves, including design, amenities, and access. With that, we are going to move into a review of the station locations and different station types we can consider for orange and blue line light rail stations. In general, light rail station platforms will offer more space for passenger movement and more amenities than many of our bus stops and even the existing red line stations provide today. For both projects, we are proposing light rail stations that are about 400 feet long, which is about the length of a standard city block downtown and as much as 24 feet wide. For this portion of the presentation, I'll now turn it over to Kimmy Feldbauer.
Thank you, Jacob. So much of our work in selecting station locations was summarized in earlier phases of Project Connect, as well as earlier development phases of the orange line and blue line. So this slide is really a high-level summary of how we evaluated where to locate a station along the corridor. Among many things, stations should maximize connections to the existing transit network, ideally providing stations that can be used by multiple bus routes or light rail routes, Stations should also balance speed and access with stop spacing, meaning that when we zoom out from the station to see the radius of the area that a passenger could access on foot or by bike, we're looking for a balance in coverage. Our goal is to minimize overlap in lower density areas while at the same time minimizing gaps in coverage. In higher density areas, we may want to overlap between coverage areas to serve the most users conveniently. And also stations serve high population and high activity areas, meaning stations would ideally be located close enough to the places people want to go so that once they arrive at the station, they can walk or bike to their final destination with relative ease. Determining the distance between stations is referred to as stop spacing. Stop spacing for light rail systems is typically 1 mile between stations, with the stations closer in more populated areas like downtown, and then spaced further apart in suburban areas. Balancing the number and location of stations is a difficult task. Too many stations means slower service, and too few stations means less access. So it is a complicated decision-making process that is also heavily influenced by our local geography. For light rail vehicle to start and stop as designed, station areas need to be both straight and flat. By straight, we mean that it needs essentially a downtown block's length of space that is free of curves and turns. And then by flat, we mean that the tracks can have a grade or a slope of 0 to 1.5%. The placement of these stations is a complex challenge that seeks to balance connectivity, speed, access, and connections to high activity areas, all within the constraints of local geography. So on the next few slides, you'll see ovals with dotted borders to indicate the general location of each station. And through a significant amount of effort that has been put into determining these general locations, we still have a lot of work to do to determine the exact placement of many of the stations. So it's likely that these ovals that you see on the maps here will shift in the future, just depending on some of the larger decisions that we make regarding the decision or the design and location of the transitway. We'll start with orange line and then transition to the blue line afterward. So please keep in mind that our station names at this point are just placeholders. The official names of the stations have not been determined. So we will label the stations to reflect the general station area for discussion purposes only. So starting from the southern end of the corridor, the transitway follows South Congress Avenue, meaning that all of the stations south of the river would be along South Congress. As indicated by the dotted orange line you see here, the Slaughter and William Cannon stations are not part of the initial investment. These would likely be built as part of the first project, but could be built as part of a future extension. The Slaughter station you see on the left, that would likely be near Ralph Ablanedo Drive and would include a park and ride connected to I-35 via a T-ramp. This T-ramp would also provide convenient access for those coming from the south on I-35. The William Cannon station would be placed near the William Cannon Drive intersection, and then the Stastny station would serve as the interim southern end for the initial investment, and it would include a park and ride and bus bays for multimodal connectivity. Based on preliminary design, the South Congress Transit Center station will likely be an aerial station due to conflicts near SH71 and SH290 frontage roads and Radham Lane. Then the St. Ed's station would be located near the intersection of Lightsey Road, and the Old Torf station would be near existing 801 stop at Old Torf. The location of the South Congress and Auditorium Shores stations are still being determined. A general area is indicated here. However, this is also the area that the light rail line will make a turn to follow the alignment of Guadalupe Street. The Republic Square station will be underground, and this is also where the orange and blue lines will connect. We'll run through the rest of the blue line stations after we finish with the orange line. So continuing north, the Government Center station, formerly referred to as Capitol West, will also be underground in the vicinity of 12th Street. Like UT West Mall and 24th Street station, these will have high pedestrian activity and will be located in proximity to the West Campus entrance on the drag. Hemphill Park, another high pedestrian activity station, would likely be between 27th and 29th Streets. This next slide is an excellent example of station spacing for a moderately dense area. The final locations of these 3 stations will be dependent upon the guideway profile and the available right-of-way near key intersections. It also should be noted that anywhere there is a station, additional right-of-way may be required. The Crestview area will connect multiple types of transit. As such, there is significant opportunity to improve North Lamar and Airport Boulevard traffic flows, as well as create a signature station that creates a more walkable area. The North Lamar Transit Center exists today, but it will be expanded as part of this project. This is the northern end of the initial project investment that Jacob was referring to in his slides. The following stations would not likely be built as part of the first project, but could be built as part of a future extension. As indicated again by the change from the solid orange line to that dotted line, dotted orange lines that you see. As density increases, the distance between stations increases. Or I'm sorry, as density decreases, the distance between stations increase. So since this is part of the corridor that will be implemented in the future, in the interim, these areas will continue to be served by the 801 Metro Rapid, where they will tie into North Lamar Transit Center. The Tech Ridge Park and Ride will also be connected to I-35 via a T-ramp. And so that concludes our review of the orange line stations, and I will turn it over to Sarah to review the blue line stations.
Thanks so much, Kimmy. I'm going to walk you through the blue line stations starting at Republic Square, through downtown, and then traveling east to the airport. The downtown portion of the blue line initial investment will operate in a tunnel with a Republic Square station and a downtown station in the lower part of downtown. These two stations will be more substantial and provide connectivity with the orange line and the red line. Each will have more than one platform connected by underground pedestrian concourses. At Republic Square, these platforms are located on 4th Street, just east of Guadalupe, and then on Guadalupe, just north of 4th, with the Guadalupe platform being built with the orange line. This station will allow for immediate transfers between the two lines and also allow an opportunity for the blue line to continue service north of Republic Square to the North Lamar Transit Center using the orange line alignment. The downtown station will have platforms on 4th Street, just west of Trinity, and will be connected via pedestrian concourses to the station on Trinity, referred to as the Mac Rainey Station, which will provide access to the Rainey neighborhood through an entrance on Cesar Chavez. From the downtown and Mac Rainey stations, the blue line will continue south and exit the tunnel north of Lady Bird Lake and cross over the lake on a new bridge. This tunnel, portal, and bridge will impact the Waller Creek Boathouse, and the project teams have been coordinating with the Austin Parks and Recreation Department on this issue. The bridge will touch down on the south shore of the lake at Waterfront Station, which will be adjacent to the Austin American Statesman site. From there, the transitway will travel at street level, turning east onto Riverside Drive and along Riverside to the Travis Heights Station, and then cross I-35 to the Lakeshore Station. The Blue Line team is evaluating opportunities to improve bike and pedestrian connectivity to these stations and their surrounding neighborhoods, including filling in gaps in the sidewalk network and finding opportunities for a shared use path. Continuing east, the Blue Line travels at street level along Riverside Drive to the Riverside, Faro, and Montopolis stations. The Riverside station will be one of the more complex stations due to the complexity of the intersection with Pleasant Valley Road, but it also presents one of the greatest opportunities for transit-oriented development. We are working on incorporating into the Blue Line project the improvements that are planned in the City of Austin's Corridors program. The final segment of the Blue Line light rail continues east and includes the Metro Center station, which will be sited near Ben White Boulevard. The team is evaluating station platform sites, and each provide different benefits, including transit-oriented development, as well as park and ride potential. For the Metro Center station, the light rail line from the Metro Center station, the light rail line continues to the airport, traveling past Spirit of Texas Drive and turning south towards the airport on an elevated structure with a direct connection to the planned terminal expansion. Now let's talk a bit more about what those stations could look like. For now, the content that you'll see applies to both lines. Later this year, we will be taking a deeper dive into the unique aspects of each line. And for this discussion, I'm going to hand it off to Janet.
Thanks, Sarah. There are three broad categories of transitway design and associated station types from a vertical perspective. These include street-level stations, elevated stations, and underground stations. We've included a photo of each station type to give you a real-life example of what each category can look like. We'll take some time over the next few slides to dig into each of these categories. There are three primary ways we can lay out a station platform horizontally, and each of these can be applied to any of the vertical layouts you saw on the last slide. In a center platform, a single platform is positioned between two tracks. A side platform is a platform positioned to the side of a pair of tracks. For the orange and blue lines, a pair of side platforms will be provided to accommodate two tracks. A split platform is a station that has a platform for each track that is split into two locations, usually on either side of an intersection. Let's talk about each of these in more detail. Here's a diagram of a center platform station. Each of the light rail vehicles, which are traveling in opposite directions, are served by the single platform between the tracks. This platform is the widest to accommodate the flow of movement for people going in each direction on the platform itself. To access the platform, passengers will cross the tracks at a dedicated crosswalk. Center platforms are the preferred layout because they allow facilities to be shared between both tracks, reducing the cost of maintenance and maximizing use in corridors where passengers are generally traveling in one direction in the morning and the opposite direction in the evening. They also offer a more comfortable waiting space for passengers who are separated from car traffic by the track. This is a diagram of a side platform station. Each of the light rail vehicles, which are traveling in opposite directions, are served by their own platforms. In this scenario, each platform is about half as wide as shown previously, around 12 feet wide, because they are only serving one direction of vehicle and passenger traffic. Depending on the direction passengers are coming from, they may or may not need to cross the tracks to reach the platform. This configuration may be used to optimize track alignment, as it does not have the divergence around the station that you saw in the previous diagram. Trains run best in a straight line. This diagram shows a side split platform station. Each of the light rail vehicles, which are traveling in opposite directions, are served by their own platforms, but in this case, the platforms are staggered and shown on the opposite sides of an intersection. Again, depending on the direction coming from, they may or may not need to cross the tracks to reach the platform. This layout is best suited for stations located in areas where the space for transportation or right-of-way is limited. Splitting and staggering the platform takes less space horizontally than either of the previous scenarios. This configuration is also well suited to stations at intersections where turning movements are balanced in each direction. This diagram shows two configuration options for an elevated station, including center and side platform layout options. We would use an elevated station in areas where the transitway is also elevated, as shown on the diagram. We would consider elevating the transitway and associated stations to address engineering or environmental challenges, such as to cross over an existing roadway or other transportation-related infrastructure, or to limit impacts to bodies of water like lakes or streams. The last diagram shows an underground platform. Similar to the elevated station diagram, the platforms in an underground station can be placed between or to either side of the tracks. We would place an underground station only in areas where the transitway is also underground. We would consider lowering the transitway and associated stations to address engineering or environmental challenges, including to avoid conflicts with other modes that exist at street level, like cross streets and driveways, or to avoid conflicts with existing utilities like water, sewer, and gas lines. The Project Connect program plans to add a tunnel through the downtown area that will serve the orange and blue lines and provide connectivity system-wide, bringing underground stations to the community. So we wanted to share some images of what that might look like. On the left, you can see what Seattle station access looks like at street level. In the middle photo, you can see the same system featuring the staircase from the ground level to the platform underground. The far right photo is from the same system, demonstrating what an underground platform could look like. In addition to these areas, Capital Metro may include areas for food, beverage, and live music at the underground stations. As we've discussed, there are several different options for how each station and the platforms associated with the station can be laid out. Regardless of which layout is selected, there are similar amenity and access considerations to evaluate. ESOS will now go over some of these in the next few slides.
Thank you, Janet. When we're talking about station design, we like to think about the station as being the sum of 4 different zones. Zone A is the station platform itself. Zone A is where passengers spend the most time, and it's probably what most of us think when we think of a station. The station platform is raised so that the light rail vehicle can feature low floor boarding, meaning that passengers will not need to climb steps to board the rail vehicle. To access the raised station platform, passengers travel through Zone B. Zone B is the ramp area between the station platform and the approach walkway. As indicated, Zone C is the approach walkway. It provides connectivity to the broader community, including crosswalks, sidewalks, and bicycle lanes. We will talk about each zone in more detail, but some influence aspects of our design for all 4 zones are ensuring stations are fully accessible, ensuring stations are scaled to fit neighborhoods, focus on community-centered designs, identify opportunities for art, budget management, public involvement, and stakeholder engagement. Public involvement and stakeholder engagement is a critical element of the entire project development process. And we always have to balance public feedback with engineering and environmental reasonableness and feasibility. However, station design is an area of the project where we are especially able to incorporate the community vision in the development. So that's why we're focusing on this subject today, and why we will focus on it again later this year. Let's take a closer look at Zone A, which is the station platform. We're showing a side split platform here for demonstration purposes only. Many orange and blue line stations will not be laid out as a side split platform, but some will. When we think about Zone A, we're thinking about a few things. First, we're determining what width is appropriate for the platform to operate as designed. We're also identifying what elements of the platform should be the same across all of the stations associated with each other, and what elements can change. For example, stations may need general consistency in layout length and width, but the number and appearance of some of the components might vary by station. We're also considering how passengers will move through the station and around the platform to minimize barriers to these movements. Also, we're identifying opportunities for public art and options for increasing accessibility beyond meeting ADA requirements. This slide highlights some of the amenities that you'd expect to see at all light rail stations. Stations will include a canopy or shelter for shade and protection from the elements, which can also offer opportunity for architectural feature elements. It will also include signage that displays next train information and emergency messages in real time. Static signage featuring maps of the system, the line and the station area. LED lighting, video surveillance, and emergency phone for safety. It'll feature speakers for use in public address system. Seating and leaning rails for passengers' comfort during dwell times. Designated ADA waiting areas. Guardrails as needed for safety. Also ticketing vending machines so that passengers may pay fares on site. And landscape to improve safety and sustainability. Zone A is often referred to as the pay zone, meaning that if you don't have a ticket, then you're not allowed in this area. Within Zone A, there are many opportunities for public art, including railing, shelters, and opportunities for static specific identifiers in signage and wayfinding. Here are some examples of what a Zone A elements you saw on the previous graphic look like in real life. Shelters, like the one shown in Charlotte, can double as a feature design element. The middle photo from Minneapolis shows a station at night with lighting, a different type of shelter, and a ticketing machine. The third photo shows an example of wayfinding signage from Seattle, keeping in mind that all of these amenities would be offered regardless of the platform layout as discussed previously. Zone B is focused on accessibility for passengers who use wheelchairs, plan to take bicycles on board, or those who have strollers, among others. Including a ramp to an elevated platform allows a vehicle to have a level boarding, which is important for accessibility. Station ramps will have guardrails for safety, which can present additional art opportunity. When we design Zone B, we're determining things like minimum and maximum lengths, width, and slopes. Zone C is the approach walkway, or the connection between the station ramp and the sidewalk or crosswalk. When we're thinking about Zone C, we're making decisions about minimum and maximum length, width and slope, landscape, guardrails, and drainage. Zone C can also present art opportunities through surface trainment and guardrails. It can also present customization opportunities through wayfinding signage and other wayfinding elements. These photos from Minneapolis and Seattle show the different ways that the elements in Zone B and C can look and work together to connect passengers from the greater community to the station platform. Zone D connects the light rail line to the surrounding neighborhoods and surrounding destinations. These connections include sidewalks and crosswalks. The design priority for Zone D is to provide safe and convenient access between the station and the greater community. This zone may have pedestrian signal buttons for crosswalks and pedestrian protection from traffic that is turning. Zone D elements also include opportunities for community art in the sidewalk and areas around the station, as well as connectivity to bicycle lanes and bike storage facilities. By connecting to the adjacent sidewalk network and community, Zone D elements enable connection to public transportation options and are, where applicable, parking areas at stations. These photos from Charlotte, Phoenix, and Minneapolis show how Zone D elements can work in real life to connect the transit stations to the community around it through crosswalk, bicycle access, and pedestrian walkway. For the station zones, Zone D will have the most variability across station, as each will be designed in the context of the surrounding community and the transportation network. For example, a neighborhood station will emphasize pedestrian and bicycle connection to the surrounding neighborhood so that riders can easily access the station on foot or on bike. On the other end of the spectrum, transit center stations will be larger and provide connections to multiple transit routes and share ride services with pickup and drop-off areas. Regional park and ride stations will provide ample vehicle parking. Before we switch over to the breakout groups, we wanted to set the context for the station discussion and the roles that the project partners play. We know we mentioned some of this in our program overview video, but wanted to revisit this and provide a bit more detail. With the partnership between the City of Austin, Capital Metro, and the establishment of the Austin Transit Partnership, or ATP, there are shared as well as distinct roles and responsibilities and interests. Capital Metro role in the ATP is to design the station and the connections to the community in Zone D. The City of Austin is responsible for managing, planning, zoning, and development of the broader station areas. Together, Capital Metro and the City of Austin are working side by side to define the station context to ensure that adjacent developments are transit supportive and provide more possibility for people, while preserving neighborhood characters and respecting the pride of each other. To wrap it up, I'll turn it over to Abby.
Thanks, Isis. So I know we've shared a lot of information with you today, and I hope you're excited as we are to get into these breakout groups and have some discussion. So thank you so much for sticking with us and joining us in those breakout groups. Before we do that, just wanted to review some of the ways that people can comment and continue to stay involved in this process. All the information that we shared today and the feedback questions we'll be using in the breakout sessions are available online at projectconnect.com. Though this is our last live meeting for the week, that information will be available until May 21st, 2021. And so you have plenty of time to still share this information with friends, neighborhoods, and colleagues, and encourage them to visit the website to review materials and provide feedback. All of the feedback that we receive by that point will be included in sort of the official summary report for this phase of station outreach. So in addition to providing feedback via this meeting and the virtual open house, you can send us an email. Emails can be directed at either the Blue Line or Orange Line project teams using blueline@catmetro.org or orangeline@catmetro.org. You can mail us your comment, again, directing those at either Blue or Orange Line. That address is Capital Metro, 607 Congress Avenue, Austin, Texas, 78701. And finally, you can call our project hotline. Orange Line calls should go to 512-369-7703. And Blue Line calls should go to 512-369-7774. Again, all the information we shared today and the feedback questions are available online at projectconnect.com. So please take a look. Community input is a critical part of this process and a critical part of Project Connect and the Orange Line and the Blue Line. So we hope that you will continue to participate in this process, as we'll have new information to share with you regularly throughout the next couple of years. And we intend to revisit the stations, the topic of stations later this year or early next year. So we hope you'll stay up to date on project developments by planning a visit to our community office once we're able to reopen that safely, joining our email list if you haven't already. Like we heard at the beginning, a lot of you already have, but please do if you have not. Following Capital Metro on Twitter and Austin, you can also follow the Austin Transit Partnership on Twitter. And liking us on Facebook, either or Capital Metro and the Austin Transit Partnership. And we'll be sharing updates and new information on all of those platforms. And all of this information, again, lives on projectconnect.com. So you can just also continue to check back there for updates. So while this marks the end of our presentation, we're moving into our breakout sessions, and we look forward to getting your feedback on what you heard today. So to move with us, there's a link that's being provided in the chat. It's being provided both in the Zoom chat, or if you're watching live stream on Facebook, the link will be provided there also. So you'll click that link and you'll be briefly put into a hold space where we'll talk a little bit more about how the breakout sessions will work. And then we'll be able to send you into a breakout room based on your selection. So go ahead and click that link that's in the chat, and we'll all move together into that hold space where we will go over how the breakout sessions will work. Again, just click the chat button in the toolbar. You'll see a link, and you'll click that link to move with us into the breakout sessions. Look forward to seeing you there.